All right, 6 o'clock, I'd like to call the special meeting to order. We'll start with pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thanks everybody showing up at short notice. We're going to have citizens participation tonight. Keep in mind, only thing that will be discussed tonight is what the special meeting is for. Please use the payroll and discrepancies. See if we can get to the bottom of this, figure out a solution to help the guys out. Is there anybody, citizens-wise, that wants to say anything? Anywhere? Go ahead.
I would just like us to remember after doing this that they've done their time, they put the hours in, we need to straighten this out so they can get paid, they have families to support, and like everyone else, we need to put this as a priority.
Okay. Anybody else?
I'll make comments if you want. If you want me to wait for the next agenda, or do you want me to talk now?
We can go for that. Anybody else? All right, moving on. What are you doing here? Payroll discrepancies.
Pretty easier. I'll talk up there so that way I'm not talking behind everybody.
Sure.
So I'm going to be walking all around as much as possible and kind of tell you why we brought us here today for you to hold your special meeting. I don't know if that makes sense. Sure, not enough. Testing.
You guys allowed anyway.
I don't know if it's going to reach. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
I'm going to do my best. I do have notes down. I'm going to do my best to try to look at you, but there are a lot of notes. So I'll do my best. So think if I'm not looking at you, it's just because I have a lot here that I want to discuss. Obviously, what brought us here today are the multiple grievances that have been filed from the Police Officers Union. And what I want to discuss is the steps of the grievance process for the collective bargaining agreement. The collective bargaining agreement is something that the town agreed on, as well as the police officers for the town. There are multiple steps as it relates to the grievances. Step one, the union has to file a grievance within 10 days of the alleged violation of the contract. The chief of police shall make the best effort to settle that dispute. The chief of police has 10 days to make that decision. Step two, if the union does not agree with the decision, the union may proceed to step two and submit the grievance to the first selectman. The first selectman has 20 days to make that decision. Step three, if the union does not agree with the decision, the union may proceed to step three, which is to demand arbitration. Thankfully, we haven't gotten to step three yet, but most of these, if not all of these agreements, have gotten to step two because they were out of my privy to approve certain things, and I'll discuss why. And I know this is going to be rather lengthy, but I think it's important to understand the grievances and what they actually mean, and the control that I can, or my agency, or my administrative assistant can actually do to alleviate these problems. First one is grievance one. That's January 8, 2025. An employee filed a grievance stating that the town failed to pay him for his accrued earned time off beyond 120 hours at his new rate of pay, as agreed upon by the town and the union. All retroactive payments and ETO payments are handled by the finance department unless the police department is asked to provide time off balances. Before filing a grievance, the employee attempted to resolve the issue informally through the union and town, but was unsuccessful. After a formal grievance was filed, the first selectman agreed to follow the terms of the collective bargaining agreement, and the officer was paid accordingly. So again, there's nothing for me to fix. So when that grievance is filed, I advise them that, yes, I understand, yes, you should get that money, but I can't cut you the check to make that money. So you have to proceed to step two. Grievance number two, January 13, 2025. The employee filed a grievance after being denied overtime for conducting a motor vehicle stop while off duty. However, because the action was taken without a supervisor's approval and was in direct violation of department policy and union contract, the overtime request was denied by myself. The grievance advanced to step 2, which is obviously the first selectman, who also upheld the decision. As a result, the overtime was not granted and no further action was taken. Grievance 3 through 9, April 24, 2025. 7 employees filed grievances claiming they were underpaid. Some were shorted 8 hours of regular time. Some did not receive their step increases, and others did not receive their canine stipend, which they have consistently received year after year, month after month, week after week, or 5 weeks. On April 7, 2025, payroll change forms for step increases were submitted to the finance department by my administrative assistant and ultimately signed off by me. This is done every time there is a pay step increase for the officers, dispatchers, or civilian personnel. Again, I do not enter their hourly rate. The hourly rate is entered by the finance department. I just submit the form. In other words, it's a reminder, hey, we need to give them a step increase. K9, which is also detective stipends, are contractually required. However, they must be entered by the finance department, not the police department. We do not enter K9 stipend or detective. In this case, it was a K9 stipend that wasn't paid. Based on the above, I agreed with the union that they were shortened for pay. However, as previously stated, the department does not handle that portion of the payroll, and I can't make those entries. On April 30th, 2025, I met with the first selectman in his office to discuss the grievances. I expressed my concerns and explained that I followed all of his prior instructions. I also reminded him that both my administrative assistant and I were directed to stop adjusting time punches, which were formalized in a field directive. At the end of our meeting, he assured me that the issues would be resolved. Ultimately, the officers were paid. Now, this is important to me because I want to show you what directive came out, because as a result, there were instructions saying that I prevented my administrative assistant from editing or fixing payroll. Bear with me, because I'm used to app on the laptop, but this is the definition. It's probably a little bit of this. So as a result of him telling this was the second time that I repeated this on April 30th, where he did not want us to adjust time clocks. As a result, I issued a written directive, and a good portion of this written directive, it's a field directive, actually is just a copy and paste from the union contract. So all that beginning, it talks about punching in 7.5 minutes prior, 7.5 minutes after. That is just a clear copy of the union contract. What is not changed, or what is not in the union contract, is this portion right here. And basically what this portion is what the administrative assistant will no longer be responsible for changing. The administrative assistant is no longer responsible for changing officers' time cards to ensure officers meet their required hours unless it involves one of the following. So, if it was approved swaps with written documentation, she would have to go in there and approve that swap, because a swap is nothing more than I work for you, you work for me. They just got to do that within that pay period. However, the officer that is scheduled to be working is technically getting paid, not the officer that is swapping at that time. Special duty overtime, where minimum pay is required per the collective bargaining agreement, that has to be adjusted, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, about minimum pay for special duty overtime. It's in 2-hour blocks and 4-hour blocks. So it becomes a little bit confusing, so she has to enter that, because the officer can work 30 minutes on a special duty job, and he's required by the collective bargaining agreement to be paid 4 hours. Well, time clock doesn't understand that, and they're not going to be able to calculate that. So she has to go in and actually fix that portion. Same thing with FTO overtime pay. Officers do get 1 hour overtime for FTO every day of the FTO. Well, that doesn't mean they stay an hour after. They just get an hour of overtime added to their paycheck. We have to manually enter that into our payroll system so it gets calculated down at the finance department. The other one was overtime. In lieu of overtime, officers are going to select ETO, which is earned time off. That one saves the town money, and two, they're not allowed to take that earned time off if it causes overtime. So at the end of the day, it's a win-win situation for the town. This right here is the portions of what was discussed and how I allegedly prevented the administrative assistant from changing. One, I was advised in a meeting with the finance department and with the first selectman and with my administrative assistant to ensure that the administrative assistant stops changing the time cards. This was done. This was created for policy and procedure purposes. There was talk about some accountability. The accountability is here for not punching in and out. The bottom line is we have a discipline matrix, and part of that matrix is to hold officers accountable. So they are required to punch in and out. If they fail to do it, they're going to be counseled. And then we're going to progress in steps of what we need to do to ensure that this keeps going. Do people forget? Yes. That's okay. Write a memo to myself and administrative assistant with the date and time that you missed your punch. And if you do that, then we can calculate it and we have written documentation of doing as such. Again, all this is in, or majority is in, the collective bargaining agreement. Any questions on that? Now I gotta figure out what grievance I was on. Grievance 10 through 14. 5 employees filed grievances stating that they were shorted up to 16 hours during a pay period, even though they had worked their scheduled shifts. Could my administrative assistant have corrected this? Yes. And the reason why I say that is because I could have, again, superseded this field directive, but my field directive doesn't just go in place right away. So if I have a field directive, yes, I too have to follow that. It's there. I can't just adjust it on the fly. If I do, I have to give pre-warning, let everybody know that this is coming out, this is when it takes effect. But yes, could I have adjusted that? Absolutely. I could have had the administrative assistant adjust that. Again, however, I like I stated before, and I keep saying, I can't adjust and pay them the amount. So when they file that grievance, I can't pay it. I can only say that the town is required to pay it, and hopefully they do on the next step. In with this grievance on May 8th, following my direction, the deputy chief, lieutenant, and administrative assistant met with the finance department and the first selectman to propose using internal scheduling software to upload data directly to ADP and reduce these types of errors. As a result, a new directive was issued informing officers that they had updated software and to be using a clock in and clock out system. This system is not like ADP, but it is designed for police, other agencies use it. When the first selectman wanted to go and utilize punch outs, no problem. If it makes my job easier, it makes my administrative assistant job easier, wonderful. However, ADP software could not calculate the different rules that I'm going to go over later on that is in the contract, which it just doesn't populate. So, as a result, I issued a second field directive. Very, very similar to the first. It supersedes the first. The only real difference that you are going to see is we actually include how to punch in and punch out on their phone, and we also tell them whether or not they punch in on their personal phone is up to them. I'm not going to force you to punch in on your personal phone, but if you don't, you're going to use a computer and you're going to punch in and out, utilize this BCF software. We've had this software a couple years. We were just never really given the opportunity to use it to its full power until roughly correct me, the end of May, June-ish, when we really started hitting home on this software. Ultimately, after that meeting and the field directive was issued, they ultimately were made whole again for their payments. Grievance 15. An employee filed a grievance claiming he was not receiving the correct pay from workers' compensation. The Plainfield Police Department is only responsible for submitting the initial injury report. All workers' compensation matters are handled by the Human Resources Department, which happens to be the Finance Department. Since I do not issue paychecks and again lack the necessary information from the town, I could not conclude this grievance and side with the officer. I do agree that he was not receiving the correct amount. But again, we get into the same thing. I cannot cut a check. So I, again, notified the union that I do agree, but it has to get forward to step 2 because the only one that can make that happen is the first selectman. Grievance 16 through 29. July 17th, 2025. 14 employees filed grievances stating they did not receive their pay increase for outside special duty overtime starting on July 1st, 2025. Additionally, one employee was missing 4 hours of special duty overtime, even though those hours were included in the original export from the PD, which can, again, be verified by the documentation that we sent to the Finance Department. In an email to my administrative assistant, the Finance Department stated they contacted ADP on July 1st, but were unsure why the pay rate did not take into effect. They also submitted the missing an earlier email from the assistant regarding the missing 4 hours, which they end up or ultimately are going to correct this pay cycle. In a separate email to the union, the Finance Department explained that the special duty pay rate in ADP had not been updated on June 25th because the changes were not saved. So we ultimately got 2 different emails, 2 conflicting emails about what happened with the special duty rate. Again, since we have the authority to make these changes, I responded to the grievance by saying, yes, I agree with you, you should be paid these hours, but we need to proceed to step 2. As far as I was told, there are additional pending grievances about pay. I have not received them. That's what obviously brought us here today in the statements issued by all the parties that were involved. Does anybody have any questions as it relates to the grievances?
Yeah, Chief. At each of the junctures when you move the grievance from step 1 to step 2, did you inform the Selectman's office and the Finance office that you agreed with the union that they should, and was that in writing, or is there any kind of form that you send them to say, hey, yes, I agree with them, we need to make them whole?
Great question. So the union has a form that they complete for their grievances and their process and what they want to be whole again, or to make them whole. I, in turn, on my letterhead, actually respond to the grievance, label the correct grievance number, and do a summary and issue my statement as it relates to it. That packet in its entirety is forwarded to the first selectman, not the Finance Department, only because that's part of the process. Chairman, if I can just keep going, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I want to call this pretty much contractual obligations because we talk about it, and to be fair, you can look at a million contracts, and you will always see that the police departments are some of the most confusing contracts out there. And it becomes difficult to understand unless you've been around this for a little while and actually see how it really works. The first thing I want to talk about, and it's just going to sound confusing right away, is one of the biggest hiccups that we have and continue to have today, and that's called holiday pay. Officers are paid for 15 holidays, regardless of whether they work on that day or not. 7 of the 15 days can be taken as earned time off, which we call bank a day for a future day off, instead of the pay. If the officer works the holiday, they will receive their work hours at time and 1/2, plus an additional 8 hours of holiday at regular pay rate. In essence, the officer will receive 12 additional hours outside of his 80-hour biweekly pay. As an example, if there is a July 4th holiday and he happens to work in his 2-week pay period, he's going to get his 80 hours and he's going to get an additional 12 hours of holiday pay. However, as mentioned above, and this is where it can even get more confusing, the officer can bank 8 hours of that 12 hours, which means instead of getting 12, he's now getting 4. And the 8 hours now goes into a bank for ETO time. If an officer does not work the holiday in that 2-week period, he still gets 80 hours plus 8 hours of additional holiday pay. This is hard to, I'm going to put it in a form and actually show you because it breaks it down a lot easier. However, the officer can elect to bank that day. So the person that is not scheduled to work on that holiday still gets 80 hours and gets his 8 hours in the bank to take a day off in the future. I, along with other members of the police department, have met with the finance department, the first selectman, to address the issues of holiday pay, to help them get a better understanding of how it works. Which, again, to be fair, and to be really fair, is quite complicated. Despite repeatedly breaking it down to them, the problem still persists. Payments are still being missed. Holiday time has been used in place of regular time. So in other words, and I just want to use an example, and I'm just going to, a Monday through Friday employee, for example, myself, let's use myself, a normal Monday through Friday employee, I'm working Monday through Friday. When I get a holiday, I get the holiday off. So, unless I have to come there. So in reality, it would say 72 hours of work and 8 hours of holiday, right? So you're equal to 80 hours out. That's not how it works with the patrol officers. Remember, they already get the 80 hours. Some work it, some don't, because they're on different schedules. And I'm going to get into their shift work because now you'll realize, okay, well, some guys end up getting scheduled, or some officers end up getting scheduled, some are not. But yet they're still being missed. So they're doing it in lieu of. That has been corrected since June or July. We had Juneteenth and July 4th holidays. That has been fixed. But again, there's still other issues because going through the holiday pay, I'm also getting where officers are getting overpaid, where they shouldn't be receiving as much money. So, let me just show this example, please. Might be a little hard to see, but what I did here is I broke this down for July 4th. This is July 4th holiday right here, and I broke it down for shifts, where they're working, whether or not they worked, or whether or not they had the day off. So just for purposes, I removed their name, but this is a true way to really break down on how to pay holiday pay. Alright, so we went to the midnight shift. So on July 4th, which is a holiday, which, again, when we talk about how they get paid, this sergeant worked that holiday, so he gets 12 hours. This officer worked that holiday, he gets 12 hours. This officer was off, he gets 8 hours. Again, this officer worked, he gets 12 hours. This here is their pay rate, that's the total that should be paid. These numbers were verified with their payroll ledger, so they can see how much the town gets. So basically like their pay stub. So we get copies of their pay stub, so we match up these numbers. So these are the numbers, the exact numbers that they're supposed to be paid, so we match up to verify. Now we're going to get a little bit more complicated. This officer, the first officer here on top, he worked, but he decided to bank 8 hours of his work. So that leaves him with only 4 hours extra that he gets paid. Second officer, he was off. Third officer worked, he gets 12. Well, here's something even a little bit different. This officer was scheduled to work, but he took a PL day. So guess what? He didn't work, so he doesn't get that extra time, but he still gets the holiday, 8 hours. I'm going to repeat the next thing. That's a shift, even shift. He's off, this sergeant's off, he gets paid 8 hours. Again, another little something special. This officer took ETO that day, so that means he's no longer working, so he only gets paid 8, not the 12. Next officer, he worked, gets 12 hours. Next officer, he's off, that is 8 hours back. These are admin schedules. They get it off, and they actually just add 8 hours. This is their all their pay rate. And what I want to talk about is this number right here. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know if I can see it, so I'm going to put it on the screen. It's $5,906.92 is what it should be. So I should be able to take this number and match it to my holiday line item that was deducted for that payroll period. So when I get that spreadsheet, this should show that $5,906.92 was deducted on July 4th for holiday pay. Great. So now I get the finance department number. Very, very close. Finance department's $5,982.10. Anybody that knows me, I will find out and I will tell you that any penny I calculate, any dollar I spend, I'm there, I documented everything and everything possible. This is a difference of $75.18. For the life of me, I couldn't figure out why there is a $75.18 upcharge from the finance department compared to my number. I went through one by one by one by one, and I couldn't figure it out. Then I realized it was a mistake. This officer who banked this day gets 4 hours of overtime. Or excuse me, 4 hours at regular pay rate at $37.59, $150. Well, what happened was, the calculation is, they gave this officer, instead of 4 hours, 6 hours, because they figured it was time and a half. So if you do the math, this is where the additional $75.18 is. He ended up getting an extra of $75.18, because it was calculated in the ADP system that the town has and wants an additional $78 or whatever, $75.18. Again, it may not seem like a lot, but that's just one time. And if I didn't catch this, again, the officer, he's probably not paying attention, not that he's trying to hide it, but breaking it down, it's hard to see. So I try to break this down. I went over the town multiple times. They want to do their own thing, and then that's where we get into the errors about holiday pay. It's a very simple procedure if we can just do it this way or get it coded this way. So when we do our export from our software, you will be able to see it. And again, we went back to our software, which we can bring up what was exported, and I actually showed the chairman that here it is. It shows 4 hours was exported. ADP calculated it as time and a half, which automatically pays for 6 hours. Any questions about that? Alright. Can I keep going or? Yep. Alright, next thing I want to talk about is shift work. Patrol officers, patrol supervisors, patrol officers work 8-hour and 15-minute shifts on a rotating schedule. That means 5 on, 2 days off, followed by 4 days on and 2 days off. Lieutenants and detectives typically work a standard schedule of 5 days on and 2 days off with 8-hour shifts. According to the union contract, officers must clock in no more than 7.5 minutes before or after their scheduled shift. However, when we just were utilizing the ADP system, it would automatically count this additional time as overtime. But that's not the case. So what would happen is Katie would have, administrative assistant would have to go in there and manually change everybody's punch card so it wouldn't calculate the overtime. If she did not, it would automatically give the officers overtime in their pay that they are not entitled. As mentioned with the grievance, the administrative assistant ended up stopping to manually change the punches. And then showed that the ADP system did not function for the department. And I'm sure it has a lot of features in everything that it does, but just going off what other departments do, this is what they do similar to what we're doing now. Any questions about shift work? I'll move right into special in-house overtime. All right. Officers are eligible for overtime when they work before and after their regularly scheduled shifts, and when they are called in on their days off to fill open shifts. They are paid time and a half for any hours worked outside their normal schedule. However, calculating overtime isn't as always straightforward. When working before their shift, officers receive minimum pays from 2 to 4 hours, even if they work less than that. After their shift, they're paid in 30-minute increments. Overtime, obviously tracking can be very complex. Every overtime shift is supported by a slip that states the reason for the overtime and includes a supervisor's approval and later on my signature. So we have checks and balances on how overtime is done. This information is then verified by the administrative assistant, and all related documents, originals, are sent to the finance department for final review and processing. Any questions on in-house overtime? All right, special duty outside overtime. All officers are eligible to work special duty overtime, yes, including the deputy chief and myself as chief, as a last resort when the job needs to be filled. And to be honest with you, I think I've worked one outside duty in the last 2 years, because the last one I worked, they told me that it was an easy job and it was really cold out and I didn't have gloves, and that was a terrible job. So I'm probably not going to do that again. But to be honest, it is difficult to process, and a lot of the public might not understand because they think that this is costing taxpayers a lot of money. So yes, officers do get paid $84.40 per hour, but that's not what I charge as for an officer. I actually bill $135 per hour to cover FICA taxes and to generate revenue. A common misconception is that this money comes from taxpayers, when in fact it is paid by the contractor. This generates, and I predicted this year, and it's going to surpass that, this generates roughly $180,000 of revenue for the town. It does not cost taxpayers any money. It generates revenue. And yes, that is why the officers are paid at a higher rate. But when they do get a pay raise as a result of it, we just expect, or they expect, that it's going to be there. And that's why we're talking about, yeah, it's only additional $34 that they're missing. It's fine, but the officers are paid on a bi-weekly basis. So instead of it just getting paid the extra $35, they got to wait about a month to recoup that. So their concern is, and this is what, put up to the top, is that we're constantly fighting battles of just trying to get proper pay. Again, like just with anything, this can be very complex. Officers are paid in 4-hour and 2-hour increments. If a job is canceled prior to 12 hours, the officers automatically receive 4 hours of pay. And guess what? Another job pops up, he can take that job too, even though he already got 4 hours of pay. After 4 hours, they're paid in 2-hour increments. Anything and everything that we do is, again, signed by the contractor, signed by the officer, and signed ultimately by me in originals with a copy of the request for the officer is forwarded to the finance department. Any questions about that? I'm going to make this brief for my administrative assistant. She's just going to give you a quick rundown on the processing of payroll so you can understand the complexity and the amount of work that she puts into it. I want to say that I know this like crazy, but I really don't. She's the person that knows this, and I don't know where I'd be without her doing this because I'd be in La La Land. But she does a phenomenal job, and I want to set that up for her. And she's going to. You want to use the mic? You're usually very loud at work, so.
So the VCS is the capabilities, it's tailored towards law enforcement. The capabilities are for scheduling, it can manage time off, and it also does the time clock. It also converts to the AP system. For employee scheduling, it's daily, weekly, monthly. We have an administrative schedule, patrol schedule, dispatcher schedules. That WCS can handle. I want to show an image of the scheduling. So it shows our patrol, shows dispatch. You'll see the highlighting. It shows if they're doing overtime. So I can plug in the overtime that's highlighted to give you a visual. So overtime scheduling again, station overtime, extra duty, and also the timesheets that is populated from VCS. This is what the station overtime looks like. The extra duty that we plug in, just to show you that our extra duty has the time and the plates of the officer, which I have to go in and change once the slip is passed in. This is the talent management, shows vacation, paid leave, sick, time right off. I think this is a different slideshow. Yeah. Yep, this is an old one.
That's what you need to know. Yeah.
It should be on that. It's not.
That's the line out for you.
Can you get an email then?
I can got it on your email, or
Yeah, I sent it to you or myself.
you can pick it up on yourself here? Unless you want to just keep talking about it and just explain what you're doing.
The visuals, I'd like to show them the slips and.
You want to come in over here and sign? That right there, top right there, those are no, that's just BCS. No, that's the other one. That's it? All right, we go to that tab. Yep, yep, yep. All right. Sorry about that.
Okay. All right, so we already went over the capabilities, real-time scheduling. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the variety of slips that the officers have access to. They have the blue extra duty, they have the white station overtime, they have the pink comp time slip, they have the request holiday vacation, which they can bank. They have up to 7 times in the fiscal year. They can bank 8 and pay the 4, or they can pay the 8 if they don't work it. Protected holiday paid, protected a lot of 5 paid holiday time and a half each fiscal year as well. They get it off automatically, so they can, if they work it, they get the time and a half. So these are the slips that they pass into me to enter. For example, I have the extra duty slip that is given to the vendor to sign off on, and they put their hours in there. And I also have the request slip from the vendor. So, once they obtain the signature and the time, I enter it into BCS. So the job is already entered into BCS, where the officer is assigned by lieutenant, and then once that, I have to adjust the time and match the slip. The original is sent down to the finance office, and I keep a copy. Again, you already saw the extra. This is the entries that lieutenant puts in and awards the officer, and I have to go in and change the time. This is the station overtime slip. So this is where a supervisor is going to sign off on the officer's slip. This is passed to myself. I am probably doing about 20 slips per pay period. And as you saw on the schedule, the highlighting of the officer is where the overtime shows on BCS. It's what's approved by the supervisor. I pass it on to deputy chief to sign off on. I send the original. I keep a copy. And this is where the highlighting of the officer is for overtime in BCS.
No, the town has access to this.
Yeah, the town has access to this. We have username and password. They can see the schedule, reports, anything they need to see. They just can't adjust anything on BCS. This is the comp time slip, so they can use this in lieu of overtime. The supervisor has to sign off on it. They have to put the reason. Then the chief deputy signs off on it. The original slip is sent down to finance, and I keep a copy. You kind of see this is the vacation holiday request process for the officers. So this is if they want to bank the 8 and they pay the 4 for the holiday. This has to be approved by the chief or deputy, and I have to enter this into their thing manually for the 8th vacation holiday, and then I manually put in the 4 hours worked. This is the protected holiday request process form. Again, this has to be approved by the supervisor, and they automatically get the day off, but they want to get the holiday pay, so they come in and work it. This slip is passed in by its original, passed in, and I keep a copy. If I'm going too fast, you can slow me down. This is a request form that if an officer wants to take time off. This slip is kept internally and filed with the officer's personal file, and I have to enter this in manually to BCS. Lieutenant and I put this in, it's approved by supervisor, so the town hall does not get a copy of this, I send them different reports. This is where I'm gonna get to the reports for what I send down to the town hall. So I have administrative conveyors report. This is where automatic entries are reoccurring sick time, that's automatically put into their bank, vacation time, personal time, or manual entries as needed. So this shows if I'm manually putting something in, it will say my name, and it will show the automatic sick time. I also have to do chief and deputy's time separately on the administrative forms because they're not in the BCS schedule, so it's not gonna automatically accrue their time. So I manually have to punch it in, so I'm showing that I'm doing that and subtracting time that they use. I also give them a balance of time, so every pay period I will start with always the physical year of 7125 current, and then I'll do the end of the pay period that shows their balance is current that pay period. These are time off activities, so it shows the time they've taken off and the date they taken this time off. And this is also everything, all these reports get signed off by Chief or Deputy. This is a daily punch schedule, so this will keep track of if they want to see a detailed report of their punches. So it's their punch in and punch out. BCS can generate this and this. I would put out each officer's report if they requested that.
But they have access.
But they have access to it. These are the timesheets that are sent down, so I have dispatch, who signs off on their own, they can verify that's correct. Chief signs off on it, also with the officers, we generate their time cards for each officer that chief has to sign off on. So it shows up, it shows their extra duty, it shows their overtime, it shows the regular hours of work, and it shows their punch hours, the total punch hours. Now this is what is exported to ADP. This is what I can see. It's kind of small, but the codes are the numbers that I can generate. I have to attach it to an email, and then I will send it to the finance department, which then they put it in ADP. If anything converts incorrectly, I can't fix it or adjust it. This is what the export looks like in BCS. Kind of hard to see, but this is what generates into a document so I can send down to them. So I put what I cannot do. I cannot change the rates in ADP as Chief went over. I can't calculate the pay rates for holiday. I can't remind them the stipends as it's contractual. When there's a rate, what I can do is remind finance that there's a rate increase by submitting a payroll change form. So as you can see the payroll change form, I put the date and the new rate. This is tracked with a call for service we'll do with dispatch just to show that an officer delivered this, just for verification. And I also, again, I can't remind them each pay period the stipend because it's contractual. Okay.
So in essence, when we send down the packet is yay thick of every single activity that is done. Anybody have any questions for Katie at all?
How much time do you put in on payroll?
I am at it daily. And when it's payroll day, or the day before, it can take me all day before, just to verify everything.
How much time was put in on payroll before the system went back?
So prior to this, with ADP, when I was using it,
No, before the
before ADP, so that was Excel spreadsheets before me. I know it was all Excel spreadsheets. I know it took them, they would come in on the weekend, and it would take her all day on a Sunday just to get it ready.
Prior to the field directive, what types of corrections or adjustments were you typically making to time things before they were sent over to the finance department?
For the ADP system or BCS? Or
Either or, whatever you had to stop doing as a result of the directive, what were you doing prior to that?
So every punch, every single employee, I had to change their punches for punching in and out just so it didn't cause overtime. And the ADP system wouldn't allow the officer to work over 40 hours in a week, and it would generate into overtime.
Okay.
Same thing with extra scrutiny. I would have to manually enter it in because it didn't understand minimum pay, comp time. If they wanted to not use the overtime, I would have to take up the overtime just so it didn't create that.
So all the things we've been talking about, those were manual inputs for you.
Yeah,
So that,
it was harder.
Yeah.
With PCS,
but
it
it's
does it more.
accurately reflected in paychecks then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How do we fix it? I mean, we all, if people, finger pointing is great and everything, everybody can talk whatever, make accusations or whatever's going on. I don't think anyone's giving a shit about that. We want to know.
I think if they just let PCS export and not change anything and if they just have the rates correct and the holiday rate correct, I think, because everything's going great now since we've done the PCS export. It's been going good. It's just the rates, and so if I need to do something more to help them or at all, it's just getting the rates correct. And I think the stipends and otherwise it's been going good with PCS since we've been doing the export.
There's not, the rates are something you can do.
I can't do the
Other
rates.
than reminding them, or,
I send the payroll change form now, but if they need me access to ADP, I can do it for them if they allowed it, but that'd be another conversation with finance.
yeah, thanks. Yeah.
So, yes, and we talked about this, it is getting better when we were given the go-ahead to use the VCS software, which is law enforcement related, which is tailored toward law enforcement. So cops get 80 hours by week, so it's 40 hours each week. Regardless if they're working 8 hours and 15 minutes, and if you add that up, because it's 5 on, 2 off, 4 on, 2 off, and then it repeats the cycle. 1 week shows 33 and change, the other week might show 45 and change, whatever it is, ultimately would equal out at the end of the year to 2,080 hours, right? But the problem that we're having is punching is a disaster, but VCS, what it does is it gives you the sheets and shows you, if you want to see when the cop punched, it will show you. But when it converts to ADP, it says cop gets 80 hours. So it's going to convert 80 hours, but you still can see the punches. Punches don't change. It just says, regardless if you mess up or if you're over, because you did it 8 minutes instead of which call, it's not going to generate the overtime because it's going to give you the 80 hours. You asked a question, and she did a good job answering it. One of my biggest things is, how can this be fixed, is allow the administrative assistant access to upload the VCS information into ADP. She will then be able to verify if it is calculating correctly in ADP. So if we're allowed to upload VCS inside ADP, we can see what it does, because as you saw, it's codes, right? It looks codes and then it gives you numbers. I don't know what that means, but when it gets transferred, it's supposed to know what it means. So give the administrative assistant access to do that. If you don't want her to give access to submit it to ADP, that's fine. But give her access to view what it looks like during ADP, because then we can correct any shortages. Give her access to change the pay rate. We don't have to send it to ADP. You still can prove it and send it. You still have the same checks and balances, and all the issues fall solely on us. Fall solely on us. So if there's a mistake, that's on us. That's on me. Solely. But we don't have the access to do that. So now we're creating different tiers and different people, different hands in the pie, and it's end up being mistakes. And you know what? It adds up. It's not one mistake. It's not two mistakes. And that's where it goes, and it grows. And then, though it was only a little bit of money, this is like the tipping point for them because of the constant misdirection. You see 30 grievances-ish, but yet you didn't see or didn't hear about the multiple issues that were done prior to this start of this year. There was multiple complaints that were ultimately handled, but finally enough was enough and the grievances started. I do believe if they can just have the access to ADP, 99% of this can be resolved. And again, you still have the checks and balances. don't give her permission to submit it to ADP until the finance department is ready, until they reviewed it, and if they have questions, we contact the administrative assistant, contact the chief, and move me, the deputy chief, and we can have that problem. The thing is, and we sit there and we talk about all these grievances or whatever. We have a backup system in place. God forbid Katie got ill one day. We have somebody that also does that payroll process and knows the payroll process. And that payroll process is a union member. So they know where the issues lie. Hence the reason why of not saying, hey, these issues are the department's fault. The union, a member, is seeing what is being transferred to the finance department. That union member is aware of everything that the finance department is receiving. So to get back to your question, I think if we just get those privileges and allowed to do those things, this is going to ease a lot of problems and puts us so hard right here.
I mean, with everything that goes on here, I can see why there's...
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
If I was a finance people, there's got to be a hell of a load that they got to take care of.
100%.
Well, every other week.
This is not a Monday through Friday. This is a 24-hour operation, 7 days a week, every day. There's a lot of money, a lot of taxpayers' dollars that are here. It's our duty to make sure that it is correct. We talk about auditing, and I just want to bring that up. If I just have a few seconds on it. I've been chief for almost 5 years, or 4.5, almost 5 years. And last year, I get an email from the town's auditing company, and I'm just going to read that email real quick. And it says, and I've never received it, and I still have only received this one. And it was really weird that I received this, and now we're talking about let's audit this. I don't cut checks, all right? I don't cut checks or make payment to the cops. Everything's documented, everything's there. Audit whatever you want. I encourage it. I have no problem with it whatsoever. But it's important for you to understand that what I have here is, it says, good afternoon, Chief. Hope all is well. We're working on our audit of the town's financial statement for fiscal year 2023. This is in 2004, so last year. 2023, and part of the process entails us documenting the internal controls of the significant transaction cycles within the town department and the Board of Ed. In speaking with the finance department, it's been noted that the police department uses a separate process for documenting time and effort for payroll than other departments. Of course we do. We're a complete different department. Would it be possible to provide us with a narrative of the payroll process with the police department, including how timesheets are compiled and approved, how compensation is determined, and how earned time off is tracked, so that we can evaluate the internal control structure relative to the accurate reporting of time and effort? Pretty much an audit, right? You want to know what's going on. This is an audit company, so I'm just going to bring it to this real quick. So I know it's hard to see, but basically this is my response. It says, Mr. Connor, please see attached documents as it pertains to payroll 3/10/2024 to 3/23/2024. The payroll is sent digitally to the town hall, including export from APCS software to ADP. You will notice the one document attached is a bunch of numbers that is actually a copy of the export to ADP, so you likely won't be able to understand or make out what it says. However, the supporting digital documentation is pretty clear. Additionally, we send out signed hard copies to the town hall as backup as described in the attached. Sometimes the exports to ADP need adjusting, and that is done by examining the hard copies. So this is what we sent to the town hall for payroll. I sent it to the audit. In reply, I didn't hear anything, so I'm like, okay, so did he not get it? Well, in reply, I got, thank you for following up. I just had my team go through. I believe we received sufficient documentation to support the control structure within the department. Appreciate your transparency and time. I don't know how much more you can give to really realize of what is done here. One thing I do want to say that we do very well, especially as a law enforcement agency, is we document. We have payroll complete in that box there. Everything that we do, everything that the officers do on a daily basis is documented. They can't get out of their car without it being documented. They can't go to a call without it being documented. They can't go to the bathroom, unfortunately, without it being documented. Sometimes with the body cam that they should leave out. But they were in a body cam, there's in-car cams, There's 24/7 video surveillance at the PD. Anytime an officer gets to work, they have to be entered into the system. They punch in, they punch out. Everything's digitally controlled and backed up with hard copies. So again, getting back to audit, whatever audit that there may be or want, please, by all means, you'll definitely receive another thing here, like we received from this audit company that the town used. So I encourage it, I look forward to it, and anybody have any questions on that? Sorry, I got a little side note with that, but any questions?
I just want to know, maybe a commission discussion, how do we help facilitate this conversation or whatever that has to happen to fix this, I mean, to make it so it doesn't continue to happen.
I know I've sat in on quite a few meetings over there.
Yeah.
Listen, it goes nowhere. It goes absolutely nowhere. I don't know how many months ago it was, I sat in a meeting with the selectmen, our state reps, another young lady, and explained all the problems that we see happening, and warned the selectmen that if we don't get it taken care of, expect grievances to come. And in that meeting, he sounded like he would. I wish he was here. I hate discussing stuff without the person. I like to be face to face. It's much better that way. And he said he was going to look into it. Actually, at that meeting, he did say he was going to try to get the payroll system that they were using to make a payroll adjustment somehow work with a PD schedule. It didn't happen. Or I guess it didn't happen because nothing changed from it. We've been having this problem with the payroll for, it's not something that just happened. This has been an issue for quite a long time. So how do we fix it on our end? I mean, I guess we can talk all we want. Actions speak louder than words. If you want to fix it, if somebody wants to fix it, let's fix it. Like I said, I wish there was. I wish people actually knew.
Yeah.
How many times did you meet with Katie on trying to fix this?
At least 3 times.
Okay, 72?
We've been 2 times with a tentative one, but it was working smoothly after transitioning from ADP to BCS. Can I comment on that for a second?
Yeah.
I think what Katie had said about allowing her access to upload to ADP would be the solution. I think right now we're kind of driving a car, but we're not able to park the car. As an analogy, I think if we were able to upload it to ADP, not only would they be able to look at it and approve it in there, but at least now all the onus is on us. We understand the contract, we understand the wages, and we understand how the operation of the PD is. So I think that would be the cleanest thing. And I think through all the presentation, transparency is there. We're not afraid to share. Electronically, hard copy, it's redundant, quite frankly, and it's a lot of work for Katie, and something that the chief of police should not be handling day to day, dealing with. He should be signing the slips because there's so much checks and balances that he shouldn't be worrying about it. It's supervised by myself, the lieutenant, or any supervisor. A slip comes in, which I think is very important, that goes through all these iterations upon iterations before getting to the chief, who then combs through it with a fine-tooth comb. Time and time again, overtime is kicked back and analyzed based off checks and balances. If overtime is approved, it's approved in the middle of the night by me. If it's off hours, if it's during the day, it's approved by one of the supervisors. Time and time again, checks and balances, checks and balances. And I also think that, there's human error and there's continuous errors. Human errors, forgetting to slip on our end, forgetting to add, the salary adjustments. Those are human errors, but continuous errors, that's the straw that broke the camel's back with the union. So I think right now, as far as everybody involved, we gotta start communicating, we gotta get together, we gotta push forward and get it solved because it's poison. Right now we got good morale, we got good retention, everything's going well. I think this is the easy fix if we just open up the lines of communication. I also want to point out that there's only 10 people here, 3 which are officers, and there's a selectman, there's a tax collector. But as far as the general public, there's only 4 individuals. So I think if we step back from our little Facebook world on the keyboard and realize that you must not truly care if you don't show up to this meeting, and it's easy to throw shade at the chief, the first selectman, the union, the finance director, but nobody's here, right? So I think we should really keep that into account too, because it's easy to get behind that keyboard and chirp around, but it's transparent, it's straightforward, and I think we do a good job, and I think, the guys deserve the money. So, hey, you want to do that?
I received an email about an hour or two before I left for the meeting from the finance director. Can I share that? Are you okay if I share that with everybody? I'll go to my here. So just trying to be as transparent as possible. I haven't had any communication whatsoever from her. This just came in just prior to our meeting here. It says, it's titled Police Payroll, Monday, August 11, 2025. It said, good afternoon, I'm trying to work together. Here is a summary of the police payroll process. Police payroll is on Monday, August 11, 2025. Police payroll needs to be in the finance department by 9:30 a.m. Finance will submit payroll to ADP by 3 p.m. Finance will pay officers based on hours downloaded from VCS. The town will download VCS to ADP. The police department shall tie out all half slips of special duty and overtime to VCS report prior to submitting to finance. Verifying all officers have adequate hours. I don't know what that means. I think Katie may. I don't know what that means. If finance discovers any discrepancies, a sheet will be provided to the police administration listing the discrepancies. Payroll will sign the sheet listing discrepancies, then send to police administration. Police administration can review the discrepancies and sign the sheet. The sheet will be emailed to the finance to have the discrepancies paid in the following payroll. If errors occur from VCS downloads and an officer notes an error in their paychecks, the officer shall contact police administration to correct in the next payroll period. Police administration shall fill out the discrepancy sheet with police administration signature noting such an error and send the sheet to the finance department. So that was the email. You can take what you want from it. I just see a couple things. I applaud the finance director reaching out to me, and I do appreciate that. There's just a couple things that you're wanting done here that I'm just trying to get a better understanding. And it just focuses on errors within VCS. We can't just focus on errors with VCS. We got to focus on errors all the way around. Again, the deputy chief made a great comment, great statement. There's human errors everywhere around. This addresses errors solely based within VCS. So we got to look past that. Again, I do appreciate her reaching out. But if part of this working together, if we can get access to ADP, we solve these problems. And we solve a majority of the issues, and we can move on and get out of the light of what is occurring right here, right now. We have to work together. We have to do this together. But we need those steps in order for that to be done. That's why we're here today. That's why you called the meeting so we can get past this. We don't have issues within this police department. The police department is doing a wonderful job. We're hiring still. We have some great officers that are staying here, that are loyal to this community, but it's tough for them to see what is taking place. Think about what is going on in the public and how that's going to affect our recruiting and how we're going to get officers to keep wanting to stay here. So it's all the way around. It's from me, it's from my department, but it's also from other officials. We do want to make this a great place to work. I've been here now since 1999, and this is a hometown, and I think it's important that we all work together.
I don't think we're going to be able to fix anything tonight. I'm open ideas, we got some ideas. Whether or not we can apply them, I don't know. We do have to get past the issue with the town hall and finance department, selectmen, and the police department. It's been an ongoing battle. It needs to be fixed. I don't have to figure out how we're going to fix it. It's continuously getting worse.
spoken about, possibly drafting some kind of letter to work on a plan to fix this, because it needs to be fixed.
Yes.
I'd come up with something that I thought, is a good starting point. And basically, it, just says, it's a letter. It could be to community, could be to specific selectmen, department, finance department. And it's basically that, we see that these ongoing discrepancies have caused multiple grievances and they're eroding officer morale. I certainly, I'm retired now, but when I was working, I would not have been happy if my paycheck was off, or if I had to double check my paycheck every time I got it to make sure that it was correct. So I think, for their sake, as Mary said, they have families, they have financial responsibilities. We can't be just letting us float around out there. So I think we need to take some concrete steps. And I think we can collaborate on this with whether the police commission is involved, or whether it's, whether it's Katie and the finance department and the selectman's office to come up with a plan of how does this get fixed. But I think it has to be, first of all, I think it has to be on a timeline. It has to be said, you're going to start this work, this week, and you're going to inform all the stakeholders. It can't be like, oh, we did this, and then a month later they tell us that they did it. Well, it has to be consistently communicated to all the stakeholders. They have to categorize and prioritize the most urgent payroll discrepancies, like the ones that you see, like time and again, the ones with, incorrect overtime or whatever, and fix them. And I think we need to assess whether the current system can be customized to fit the needs of the department. Right now, it doesn't seem like it's serving the needs.
From what I understand, and LT, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, a lot of departments use the VCS system and then convert it into their system. So it can happen and it can work.
But I think, Katie made a very good point of, and the chief as well. If she had access and could at least have viewing access to see, oh, this is a glaring error right here, and she's going to know it because she's used to the VCS software. That maybe the people in the finance department are not familiar with that. But I think it has to be set up. It has to be, said. The selectman's office, the finance office, and the police department are those people, along with the union, are going to work together and resolve this. And it has to be done in a timeline.
Or if there was a discrepancy, could they just cut a check, write that in there, and not make them wait to the next pay period?
I don't know how that works in the town. I know I have 28 employees, and if there's a problem with their paycheck, I pay them right there.
Yeah, right. And I'm sure there's documentation on all that has to happen.
This is way more complicated than that, but.
There's a lot of documentation here.
I wouldn't want to be the finance department to get this every 2 weeks and try to figure this out. And nor would it just seems like a lot of work for, there's got to be a simpler way.
How do we as a commission though facilitate that conversation and make sure it happens? Because these are ultimately, in my mind anyway, they're my officers, they're our employees. And if we don't step up and make sure that they're being rightly compensated, that's a shame on us too. So do we draft a letter to the selectmen and board of, and the finance department and say, this is what we propose?
Yeah, I think at this point it would be, one of the commissioners said yesterday, the letter could be drafted from the commission and sent out by you. Because obviously, being the selectmen have a tarnished relationship.
Well, it comes from the commission.
So,
I
I don't think I'm going gonna get anywhere with it, so we might, we might have to try something different. I've tried,
Yeah,
we've tried many times.
and like I said, I'm all for putting very specifics into the letter. I have a draft right here of basically what I want to say to them, if you want to hear it. It says, we're committed to resolving these payroll issues in a fair, timely, and transparent manner. We propose the following collaborative steps. By August 10th, 2025, form a joint working group with representatives from the police department, the union, the selectmen's office, and the finance office. Catalog and prioritize the most urgent payroll discrepancies. Assess whether the current system can be customized or if an alternative solution is required, and that's where I think we talked about the access for Katie. Establish a clear implementation timeline, and that's key. Like, this has to be done now. And provide regular progress updates to everyone involved, all stakeholders. That's what I came up with, but I don't know if that's the rest of you all.
And if I can add as well, there was an email from the selectmen where there was officers that were owed holiday time. There was at least 3 of them. And Jody emailed me asking with the selectmen, do we pay these officers? Because they are owed. Selectman came back and he said, hold on. And if they ask, to say we're working on it. So why are we holding off on paying the officers? I have the documentation that he said that, and again, when something's wrong, they're waiting for the next pay period, sometimes 2 pay periods. So I don't know why we're holding on to their pay.
When you guys have a discrepancy, or they find a discrepancy, they call you, like, how is your communication with the finance department?
So Jody and I will email back and forth during that process. If she has a question, I'll answer it. If she catches an error on my end, where like for an extra duty job, let's say, I have to change the time. If I didn't have the time exactly changed correctly, she'll say, hey, this is 5, it should be 6. I'll change it. We communicate in that way. But again, it comes with understanding the holiday pay. That's where most of the discrepancies come from, and the rates, and not understanding that we're not all like other departments where they're 72 hours plus the holiday. So I think if they just understood that, which they started to once we had that last meeting, which it is, but again, it's been great from the PCS. It shows if you worked or the holiday not worked. But again, if there's an error, it's just more of, I think it's unfair that they're holding on to.
I think another option too would be if they cannot cash that check and to be able to communicate with the union and possibly get weekly pay. We're the only department that is bi-weekly in the town. So if they can't cut that check right away, is there an option to have weekly pay in order for that next week they can play catch up? Because obviously those human errors may still be there, even if we get everything perfect. But then at least they don't have to wait a couple weeks to get it going. And if the system works as it's supposed to, then they shouldn't have so much of a workload where they could do payroll weekly. Obviously that would have to be negotiated accordingly. But that's a thought also.
I mean, I remember this payroll problem going back probably a year. Yeah. When did the payroll problem start?
So it started when the selectmen wanted to incorporate punches. I understand his thought process and for accountability and everything of that nature. But from the get-go, it's not that I was against punches. It's just you saw the complication of what it entails. This is not Monday through Friday. You punch in, you punch out for lunch, you punch back in, and then you punch out when you go home. It does not work to that capability. That is the discussion I had over and over. So you're looking at before contract negotiations, because that was one of the biggest things of getting in to punch in and out. Now, my biggest thing was, okay, this is what you want, I understand. Please tell me another law enforcement agency that does this so I can communicate with the chief of police to try to understand how they process it. I asked for that over and over, and I have yet to be given a law enforcement agency that utilizes the system. No problem, they utilize it great. What errors, what problems did they have? When the town went to ADP, we had no formal training. He said, here's ADP, if you have questions, please contact the finance department. I'm sorry, but how I process and lead my department is not saying, here, good luck. You know, mine's here, this is the tools you need so you can succeed in this. So, let's say roughly a year, probably longer, because there's before contract negotiation. So, it's that process. I understand of how he wants the accountability, no problem. But we have to find a system that works. Again, find me an agency that does this. And if they do, let me reach out to the chief of police and find out their problems, so we don't have to.
The only question I have is for clarification, because a lot of information has been thrown out at us. So just to kind of reiterate, between the BCS and ADP, is there a communication issue there with those two systems? Is it because of the two systems, or is it because of input that's put into it? Where's more the majority of the problem? If the finance department not understanding the process, mostly of the holiday and all the different aspects of the PD, or is it an integration problem between BCS and ADP, or a combination of both?
Perfect, because I think it's going to be mutual. It's going to be that combination, right? Because we don't have the access and the functionalities of ADP, so we don't know. We granted the finance department access to our BCS office so they can understand. We don't have that same thing other than punch in, punch out.
On the other side.
On the other side.
On the other side of it is the finance department is fully understanding of your side of it.
Correct.
So they can look at that the BCS to ADP, but they might not understand what they're looking at.
Correct.
So to your point, having you able to access that as a double check to make sure everything is correct before it's final.
And a lot of it also has to do with coding. You have to have the proper coding. So if I say H is a holiday, that's going to be a holiday code. Remember what I said. You have holiday work, holiday pay, now you have 4-hour holiday pay. So you don't have just one code. You have to have 4. Let us put those codes in, but we're going to need additional codes. So what we put in that 4 hours, and we put in the HWC, I don't even know, that means that he banked a day and that he still gets 4 hours of holiday pay. But then when that person just works 8 hours, he just gets 8 hours, or doesn't work, he just gets 8 hours, and then the person that works has holiday work, HW. So you have to have the coding. The coding is given to us by ADP, and then we put it into our system, and then we transfer out over to it.
Okay, do they have an adequate coding that fits the needs?
So BCS, we have a gentleman, Steve, who handles the export for BCS. They communicate with ADP and the finance department. They set it up together.
Okay.
Now before I came in, and they were already set up where they, right.
Oh, yeah, codes are there. Okay.
I would agree. Codes are being used.
It's just what works for the finance, the folks, what they thought worked.
And do you input those codes, or does the finance department?
Like for the, so in the export, like, finance created those codes for the export.
Okay.
But in BCS, we added those codes to BCS and what they wanted.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the people that haven't been able to wrap their head around this are the ones that actually create the code.
Right. Another thing with the ADP system, when I was doing it, ADP can't automatically add an 8th hour, so to total 80 hours. So I had to manually add 8 hours because an officer's pay period could be short. It could be 9 days versus 10 days. And when it's contractually they're 80 hours no matter what, ADP couldn't concept that, whereas BCS concepts that.
Anybody else? Statements you want to make?
Yeah, after what I just said, we just talked about, I don't understand how it's so difficult for the selectmen's office, the finance department, and chief, or whoever, to sit down and just understand this. Because
ahead. I have another statement and that. It was in the letter that was put out, there was a statement made that the commission doesn't, I don't know how to word it, enforce or, the commission makes policy for the PD, the approved policy for the PD, is that correct? Okay. So, on August 25th, 2023, it said that we basically told the police department not to follow the finance department's request. Whatever that had to do with payroll or the PD, the officers, I'm not sure because on April 25th, 2023, they tried to implement a policy for gifting.
Right.
That was sent to the PD and the officers without anybody telling, not even the chief, what it was about or anything brought to the commission for a new policy on gifting. What that has to do with us defying the finance department in this situation, I'm not really sure. So to clarify that whole thing that they referenced was gifting. And correct me if I'm wrong, that was paperwork had to be done and somebody brought down a box of donuts.
Yeah, so there was a lot of questions that we had that couldn't be answered. We also talked about discipline. The discipline is not held by the selectman's office. Discipline is done through the police department and the police commission. So it referenced things that pertain no factor, but it also pertained to people bringing in products on a Sunday, and it required me to go in and sign a form and getting their name and ID as it relates to it. So there was a lot of questions as it related to this policy that was sent out to everyone to sign, which I brought to the commission and they were aware of it, and that's when we brought it regarding it. And there was just so much confusion on it and so many questions along with some errors. So we had no understanding as to what it meant. So again, it's in reference to a policy. Again, it's just thrown on the lap and saying, here you go, follow. What does it mean?
And I don't believe that, I'm recalling the conversation correctly at that meeting, I don't believe that we said, don't do it. I believe what we said was, we have too many questions for it to be approved, and we never got any answers. So,
No, I pretty much made a motion to tell the chief to not sign it.
did you?
Yeah.
No.
Seconded,
I agree.
it said exactly what was said.
Yeah.
I don't think anything ever became official, no more on that.
Yeah. The biggest question I had is I reached out to all the departments to find out if they received it, and mostly the Department of Education and some of the schools that they haven't received it. So it was just.
All right. Let's get this people. What are we gonna do?
Well, I guess we sit down at the table again and try to make work this out.
Yeah?
I mean, I'll give it another shot. I just,
Yeah.
you know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over without you get the same result. So,
I think in both parties, right, we have to have give and take. Agreement. It's part of everything.
Yeah.
Give and take. You know, again, I applaud the finance director for reaching out. You know, there's things that she wanted, so now let's say there are some things we want, and let's come up with that happy medium together, so we can get this to work for everybody. There's no way that the town should be feeling, you know, or going through or hearing about what we're doing. We should be able to manage this ourselves by working together.
and the officer should,
Absolutely not.
shouldn't be, it shouldn't be a problem. Right.
Yeah. Do you want to, I make a motion.
Yeah.
Make a motion that, commission, you reach out to the selectmen and to the board of finance office and ask for a meeting to discuss, any adaptations, whatever we can make to the current payroll system to make it more effective and efficient for our officers.
Motion's been made, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good, motion carried, I'll do that.
But I think if the meeting is fruitless, then I think that brings it to a different.
I would like, if I could, maybe have more than, I want people there.
Yeah, it needs to be in a,
I want people or recorded or
yeah,
an audience. I want
yes.
people there.
I think that when you ask the meeting, maybe it's more than one commission member, more than one department administrator. Definitely Katie needs to be there, and then Kelly and Kevin. If they choose to bring,
Can't do it. That would be a board of selectmen meeting.
What's that?
It would constitute a meeting if we were both there.
Oh, okay.
That's a quorum.
Yeah. So I'm just saying that,
Can I have a recommendation? Yeah, just invite a member of the public. And, that's usually agreed upon and, just
Yeah.
independent and a thoughtful process and they might have a good night.
yeah, I think it's almost like minutes need to be taken. If it could be a public meeting, that would be great, but I don't know that that's the most beneficial format for, discussing all this.
Well, there's nothing to hide.
No, but it's,
I would be all for that.
I always think, look for a public meeting, just because, just looking at stuff on social media and stuff that's going on, and what people are saying, this and that, at least it was a public meeting. It can all be put out there, discussed, questions can be asked, and actual answers, but instead of all of this crap and speculation that's going on back and forth between so many different camps on social media. It's like ridiculous right now.
Like Deb says, all the public had all this to say on social media, but
yeah.
nobody showed up yet.
This is the last minute meeting.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
the only reason we knew about the meeting is because we went to check the calendar because we didn't know whether there was a meeting tonight.
Yeah, we kind of put it out like 24 hours.
It was very
I don't know, it was,
So
we needed to do something.
I was working, I made it.
But there is people, there's other people that knew this meeting was happening that could have
But
been.
I think if you had a meeting between, I know that, if you had a meeting like this, where you're gonna try to fix things, sometimes things change, like more people, more eyes,
So do we ask for a joint meeting between the commission and the board of selectmen?
I would say we could do that.
And invite the board of the,
Finance, correct.
finance department to come as well?
I always say yes, we can do that.
I make a motion, I can request a meeting, a joint meeting between the board of selectmen and the police commission.
Let me, what else?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so motion carried. So, I would like to try to set it up for next week. Yeah. Well, I'm leaving, I'm going to town. You're not gonna be here?
You can have it without me, but
You're.
I don't think we should hold on, I think we should wait because.
Is that something you'd be able to sit in on too?
Yeah.
Okay. LT, is that something we could get you to sit in on too? I know you, I'm going away Thursday, Friday. Oh, next week, Okay.
Just so you know, there's a meeting Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night also.
Oh, yeah, I'm just trying to get it done as quickly as we can.
I get it.
to help these guys out.
Yeah. Thursday night's free.
Okay. I will get together and, tomorrow I'll try to set out the date for that. All right, anybody else? No? All right, executive session. I don't really see any reason for executive session. Commission comments. Meet 'em. Bruce. Motion's been made to our second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody.